And we're live. Welcome back, everybody, to a new episode of the Wheelie Podcast. I'm your host, Micah Toll, and I'm joined again by Electrek's Seth Weintraub. How's it going, Seth?
Good.
Awesome. And we have got, like usual, a bunch of interesting and diverse e-bike and e-moto and other micromobility stories to discuss this week. We're covering everything from Lectric's new XPedition 2.0 e-bike to Yamaha giving up in the North American market. Japan's got a cool new e-bike that is finally coming to the US after many years of us all drooling over it. We're checking out some cool electric cargo scooters, like moped style scooters, more than one, believe it or not. LiveWire is also getting into the electric scooter game, though in a bit bigger and more powerful form factor. And we'll finish it off with Royal Enfield's new electric motorcycle, the Flying Flea. Where are we going to start with this week, Seth?
All right. Lectric, one of our favorite companies, unveils major upgrades to XPedition 2.0 e-bike, no price increase.
Yeah, this is, I was going to say this is pretty wild, but to be honest, it's par for the course for Lectric to be like, here's a whole lot more and no change in the price. This is their long tail cargo e-bike. It's the XPedition 2.0 now, the second version, and it got even longer. Before it was sort of like a stubby long tail. Now it's like a real long tail with a pretty stretched rear rack there. You can see if you're watching along here with us. And it got a number of new upgrades. We've got a new torque sensor now. So folks who like to pedal, you're going to find that much more responsive pedaling experience. Of course, it's still got the throttle. So, if you want to get that extra boost from a standstill or you're just feeling kind of lazy, you can, of course, use the throttle as well. It's a left side thumb throttle, not my favorite, but it's the paddle style. So it is like the better of the thumb throttles, I would say. But there's a bunch of other things here. We've got a redesigned rear end. We've got a new, much wider kickstand. We've got a new M24 motor. It's a 750 watt continuous, but it really puts out like 1300 watts peak. So, very, very powerful, which is going to be good for hill climbing. Getting started from a stop with a lot of weight on it. It's rated for 450 pounds. So, you could theoretically load this up with a couple of adults on back and yourself. Or tons and tons of cargo groceries. And they really test these things. Like I've seen they load weight plates on the back and they ride these things around. They also do the DIN testing. It's like a German standard for bicycles, which isn't required in the US, but it's nice to see that, they do these, higher standard testing with European standards for getting these weight ratings. But that's not it. There's other updates, a new fork, new tire size. It's now a 2.5 inch instead of a 3 inch, a little more nimble for urban riding, a through axle front wheel there. Let's see what else. New batteries. So now they've got 3 different battery options. You've got the single battery, which I think is like 624 watt hours, pretty standard for e-bikes these days. It's about average. But you can double that up for 1248 watt hours if you get 2 batteries, or you can get the super long range version where both of those batteries are even bigger. I think they're 17 amp hour, and that turns into something like 1.6 kilowatt hours. So like a huge amount of battery capacity, something like 2.5 to 3 times sort of the average capacity for e-bikes on the market today, if you go with the super long range 35 amp hour option between those two. Probably that's overkill for most people, but if you're doing deliveries or using the bike for all day riding, it's definitely going to be a nice option to have. It does bump the price up a bit. The entry level model here with the single 624 watt hour battery, that one's priced at $13.99. Then it's an extra $300 to get double batteries, and then another $300 on that to increase the capacity of both of those batteries to the 1.68 kilowatt hour option. So you can bring this thing all the way up to like $2,000 if you really put the crazy capacity on it. But for most people, the $13.99 or the $16.99 version is going to be plenty. And then the last thing here, I'm sure I've missed a few updates, but the last major thing is the color. So we've got 2 color options now, this sort of like light gray white option, and my favorite, this blue option, which I just think is a really pretty color. It's not like super vibrant, they didn't go crazy. Lectric is not known for going crazy with their colors, but it is nice to see them give us a little bit more color, a little more splash here than we're used to seeing. They've done it a little bit before, but they've often been very much like you could have it in white or black company. So it's great to see a little more splash of color here. Seth, so what do you think of the new updates here on the XPedition 2.0?
Well, it's actually interesting because I'm in a hilly area, and somebody just asked me for bike recommendations for their son. And of course, if anybody's asking, like, you always have to include Electrek in the kind of the short list of companies that we like, good bang for your buck. Obviously, uh, people looking for a high-end gravel bike, this may not the choice. But if you're looking for a kind of a general purpose bike for your kid, or for some like general purpose stuff, you got to kind of look at Electrek. And I was kind of thinking, like, like, I wonder if a cargo bike would make sense. You have the added power because we have the big hill. It's not too much more expensive at, $13.99. And you get that extra power. And then, of course, like, what's cooler than being able to throw a couple of your friends on the back? Like, you could have,
Definitely.
like, this is like I don't know, he's, I would say, 13 years old. Him being able to take two of his friends, I mean, of course, that's super not safe, and wear your helmets and neck braces and everything. But what would be more fun than that? Like, hey guys, let's all jump on and go to the store and grab some snacks or something. Like, this would be kind of a cool kid bike. Obviously, there's some safety concerns I would have, but um, it's just like, well, let's go outside of the cargo bike demographic a little bit. Maybe it makes sense for other people as well, because you have the added power, which a lot of people are going to appreciate on hills. Um, you have the, like, why does everybody buy a pickup in the US when they don't need a pickup? This is kind of like the bike equivalent of that, except obviously not nearly as harmful for the world and the environment and everything. So, yeah, I'm just kind of thinking about, like, oh, cargo bikes are kind of the SUVs of bikes, and maybe this is something that needs to be opened up to a wider audience.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you're saying, this is sort of excessive when you compare it to a normal bike, but the excess is not something that's gonna, take up two parking spots kind of thing, or
Right.
mow down a group of people at an intersection.
Yeah, and I mean, this picture that, if you're watching, has like two wide crates on it and a bunch of bags. Like, it's a grocery getter. I mean, it does kind of everything. Like, if you don't, and what are you paying? What is the expense? You get a little bit longer of a wheelbase, but for the most part, like, if you're not taking your bike in the back of your car somewhere, you don't really need the foldable stuff. And having a little bit extra tail doesn't really affect too much. I mean, it's not going to be quite as sporty as a regular bike, but um, you're really not sacrificing much. And at a $1,400 price point, you're getting a better motor than the XP 3.0, and the possibility of, like, much more range if you add a bunch of batteries. So I just think it's maybe time to start thinking about cargo bikes outside, especially priced this way, outside of the realm of cargo bike people.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it really is like you're saying, sort of the SUV of the e-bikes that can do so many things. And if anything, you could probably put some like, dual sport tires on it or something and ride it on trails, like what SUV owners dream that they'll do one day.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the possibility exists, and that's all you really need.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. Yamaha throws in the towel, pulls out of e-bike market in North America.
Yeah, this is another sad one, sort of a sequel to last week when we were discussing a lot of companies that have been in trouble. Good news is that Yamaha is obviously a global company, and so the fact that things have cooled off a bit for them in the North American market doesn't mean that Yamaha Bikes is going to be closing down. However, they did make the decision to pull out of the U.S. or all of North America rather, because it just seems like their style of more premium bikes, their model is just it's not working in the current market where they're competing on the high end with Even more premium bikes that have a much larger bike shop distribution network. And on the lower end, they're competing with companies like the Lectric. Now, of course, Yamaha's on a different level. They develop and produce their own mid-drive motors. Their bicycle frames are like several steps above many of the competition. The one we're looking at here, the Moro, it's got this like split frame where the battery's between two frame members, and then the rear shock is also between two frame members. They just do really cool, really innovative stuff and build really high quality bikes. But it's just been such a tough market for the last couple of years or so. So many companies are overstocked with bikes. You look at companies like Specialized that are just offering crazy sales on what used to be, like $4,000 and $5,000 bikes going for, 30-40% off. And I can understand how it would be hard for a company like Yamaha to compete in that. So unfortunately, they've pulled out of the North American market. They did offer like a crazy sale, something like 60% off of their models. I think they were pretty much all scooped up immediately at those
Yeah.
prices because they're incredible bikes. I've never heard anybody complain about a Yamaha bike. And hopefully, this is a temporary thing. When the market turns around, maybe in a few years, we'll be talking about Yamaha's re-entry into the North American market. It's not unheard of that brands have gone and come back in the automotive sphere as well. And so this might not be the end, but it's certainly the closing of this chapter for Yamaha in North America, at least with their electric bikes.
Yeah, it's sad to see. I just thought of Fiat as one of the companies that pulled out of the U.S. and then came back in later on. I guess the problem with Yamaha is they can't really differentiate themselves too much because you do have the Specialized and the Treks who kind of own the high-end space. They own the bike shop real estate, and then you have on the lower end. You have companies like Giant that kind of compete directly. And then you have on the lower end so much better deals like coming out of China that I want to say like Aventon, even like Pedigo has some like pretty solid off-road bikes that compete pretty well with these bikes. And Pedigo's not cheap by any means, but they have the real estate. So people are seeing those bikes a lot more. Yamaha doesn't really have the distribution network that some of the other brands have. So it's not, I guess that's all to say is that like it's not due to Yamaha's like lack of quality or lack of capabilities. They're clearly great bikes, but they just don't have enough marketing potential to kind of make a profit, which is the end game for any company. So sad to see them go, but I get it. Maybe they'll regroup, as you said, and come out with some new stuff, or maybe maybe it makes sense for them to become an OEM and make some parts for motors or whatever for the other brands.
Yeah, and I think we've seen Yamaha motors on other bikes before, so I think they've dabbled in that. But I'm sure that they, in addition to just being an OEM, they really want to have their own bikes out there. I mean, they've been for years in the Japanese market before they came to the U.S. and they have a very strong bike presence, and they've got a strong everything presence. Like pianos and swimming pools and whatever else
Yeah.
they make.
Music instruments.
Yeah. So they've obviously a huge company with huge backing, and I can't imagine this is the end of their bikes in the U.S. in the long run.
Yeah, we hope to see them come back. All right, let's move on. Japan's coolest looking, speaking of Japan, electric cargo trike is now coming to the US.
Yeah, I've been following this since at least 2018. This is the Streak cargo bike. It looks like nothing you've ever seen before. I can pretty much guarantee it. Hopefully, you're watching along with us here, but I'll do my best to describe this indescribable e-bike. It's a trike, but it has a tadpole setup, which means it has two wheels in the front and a single wheel in the back. The entire center of the frame is like a big bubble, like a big ring of bike tube leaving a hollow cavity. And there you have all these different modular setups. You can store cargo inside of the big, like what would sort of be the front triangle on a normal bike, but is instead a massive like roll cage for cargo. In some of these setups, it's got like a two-tier system. So you got these big plastic like storage totes, or like the kind you'd have in your garage on shelves. In there, they've got different setups for like EMTs and fire rescue that can store tools and everything inside of that big hollow section of the frame. But in addition to having this really unique frame design for cargo, this is also a tilting e-bike. So not only is it more stable because it's got the two wheels in the front, it also leans into turns, which is, without the leaning, that's like the big Achilles heel of trikes, is that they get tippy in the turns. But when the trike leans, you no longer have that sensation. So you get this cool stability of a three-wheeler. You don't have to put your feet down, that sort of thing. But you get all the advantages of a leaning bike with the, ride quality and being able to maintain speed into the turns, that sort of thing. And so we've watched this bike be very successful in Japan. It's just a combination of like super utility and a eye-catching, striking design that I'm sure has people opening their wallets in Japan just to have something unique like that. And finally, it is coming to the US through the brand Vivolt or Revolt. I'm not sure how you actually pronounce it, but they've actually partnered up to bring the Streak to their shop. I think through Portland is where it's starting to be launched in the US. I've heard they already have one there, and so I'm talking to them hopefully to get a chance to try one of these things out soon. But there's surely going to be more of these as they bring them in, and it's really exciting to see just such an incredibly unique, novel design for a cargo trike like this. Something we've just never seen before in the U.S. market. To have this really cool Japanese design here is like a big day, and really cool to see this kind of collaboration that we rarely get a chance to see cool Japanese vehicles of any type come to the U.S. What do you think of this crazy design, Seth?
I love it. In fact, I'm for those not watching, I'm kind of going through YouTube videos of it. It looks pretty awesome. It actually makes a ton of sense, because if you're carrying heavy stuff, you really want the ability to, keep the stuff at a low center of gravity, but also, be able to turn. And with that suspension, it really lets kind of you. Let's see if I can find another person riding it, but it really just seemed like a really smart idea.
Yeah, I mean, it's you always hear about how like the tricky thing for cargo bikes is that the frame gets in the way, and in this one they were like, let's just take the frame entirely out of the way of all the cargo stuff.
Right. Yeah, I love it. I think I think it'll be quite popular. I'm surprised, to be honest. I'm surprised nobody else has kind of thought of this or done something like this.
Yeah, what I understand is that Japan, so there are different like export regulations for companies to sell their products outside of Japan,
Hmm.
and that until it was like certified for something other than Japanese standards, they didn't want to bring it out of the country. And so I think that this brand that's bringing it to the U.S. like went through all the effort of I think swapping out some of the parts, like different drivetrain, this and that, and things that would basically make it meet like a European or a North American standard. Which it's not that it wasn't fine as it was. It was perhaps even better in its original
Right.
form, but it was only designed to meet Japanese standards, and so I think that's what took so long for it to finally leave the country.
And what are the specs on the battery and motor and all that? Do we have those?
They were pretty low in the original format. I'm not sure what they're going to be for the US version, but they
Right.
kind of met like the European 250 watt, that kind of stuff for
Oh,
the
geez.
original Japanese version. Yeah, but I'm sure when they sort of recertified this thing, I'm sure that's some of that stuff that they addressed. I don't know if it'll go faster than the 25 kilometers per hour, 15 miles per hour. That's often a speed limit for trikes, but it's due to stability issues because this one's a tadpole and leaning. I could see them bumping that speed up and being able to get away with it with the better stability.
That's cool. And I'm sure courier companies are drooling over something like this rather than
Oh yeah, I can
big
imagine.
tubs that they're currently using.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on. This new sun-powered electric cargo moped is literally giant solar panels on wheels.
Yeah, that's that's a great description of what this thing is. Imagine two like Amazon style 120-watt solar panels slapped on either side of sort of a Vespa scooter. That's basically what we've got here with this new vehicle called the Lightfoot. They're launching this thing in the US. They just announced it a couple of days ago, and they are going to start selling it. And it's designed to be a solar powered, not just a moped scooter, but a cargo scooter as well. So one of the two sides of the Lightfoot actually opens up, the whole solar panel folds out, and you've got a fairly large, especially for a scooter, locking storage section in there. So you can put all sorts of cargo and whatever you're carrying around throughout the day. Now, in terms of charging, a lot of these solar powered two wheelers are a bit gimmicky because they'll put like a very small solar panel here or there, or they're oriented weirdly. In this case, it seems like it would actually work pretty well. They claim that you get about 3 miles of range per hour of charging. And so, you're probably not going to be able to run this entirely on solar. They do have a onboard charger, so you just plug in an extension cord and it will charge up in something like an hour and a half to 80% from a wall plug. But the nice thing is that for someone using it, for utility, delivery, couriers, etc., while it's out for most of the day, it's just slowly increasing its range. So they claim, I think it's 36 miles or 50 kilometers or something like that, or 60 kilometers of range. There it is, yeah, 60 kilometers of range on a charge. But if you take advantage of that solar charging, they say you can potentially add up to 18 miles a day or 30 kilometers of additional range. So that's really the goal here, is that it's probably not going to be purely solar charged unless it's someone using it sort of like their own private transportation. So you're using it maybe like 7 or 8 miles a day kind of thing. But for someone using most of the charge per day, it's just going to extend that range, which is also a neat feature. Now, unless you're watching this with us, it's kind of hard to like take in exactly how interesting this looks. As an engineer, I love it, but I can see how the design would be very divisive for people who are not like into the nerdy aspects of solar, because it really looks like you're just sitting on a solar panel and riding it around. And the seat, to be honest, doesn't look terribly comfortable either, the way it's built on top of this. Now, I'm hopefully going to get a chance to test this out later today. I'm actually at the Micromobility America conference in LA right now, and the company is hoping to have it at the show. They've been trying to get it shipped in from their factory in time. So with any luck, I'll be able to take it on a test ride and let you guys know how that went. If so, it'll probably be in the next next podcast. But if not, then hopefully we'll be able to get a chance to test this thing out soon, because it certainly looks wild, and I'm curious how well it actually rides compared to how interesting it looks. Seth, what are your first impressions on the Lightfoot?
All right, I have lots of ideas here. So first of all, why does it fold down? Like I feel like when you're parked, if it folded up, like it would be much, because right now you're basically only going to get sun from half of the bike. Like,
Well, that's the cargo door. That's just for accessing the cargo storage
right.
area.
But why not have it open up the other way so that when you're parked in a safe area, assuming, and you don't have any cargo, you could
Yeah.
just have it fold out like wings and charge twice as fast.
Yeah, I guess you'd have to have it fold like pretty far up so it's not in your way when you're getting cargo out. But yeah, that would be an advantage, especially at like high noon, so you can just have it come out flat.
Yeah. So, I mean, the other thing is like, well, and I'm sure I haven't read the comments, but I'm sure there's somebody down there going, well, actually, you're only going to get half that power because of the. So, obviously, this is not going to give you a lot of power from the sun, but it's a great idea. Like if your bike is just sitting out in the sun like half the day, why not throw a few miles on there? Um, I do think that this is going to be a big sacrifice, though, from a comfort standpoint. It's definitely a DIY looking project, and I totally understand where it's coming from. Like I get it, but I don't know in practicality terms, like would the sacrifice of comfort and you know the quality of the bike be worth it for the extra miles you get? probably not, but solar's so cool. So
Yeah, and the way I see the design, like I see it sort of like the ethos of the Cybertruck, right? Like there was no reason to design it that way. It was purely gratuitous to say like we've got these big giant flat stainless steel panels. And here it's kind of like the gratuitous solar. Like we can do it, so let's do it.
right,
I just find this less offensive, you know, like they're having fun without it being an issue, in my
right.
opinion.
Yeah, and I think there might be something to this. Like there is something about bikes requiring so little power. We've seen bikes with solar trailers before that can just power. They can just go forever until the sun goes
Right.
away. And the trailer has like 4 or 5 big, like 300-watt solar panels on it. So, theoretically, it could put out almost a kilowatt, which would, power most bikes pretty handily. This is not that. Like you're not gonna just be able to ride on the sun. Um, so I don't know. I feel like there's some string to be tugged here. Like there is like a solar e-bike connection thing, and obviously, if you have solar panels on your roof, that's the way to do it. That's more efficient. Yes, I know, but it just feels like there's something here. Like there's something about having solar on a bike, and there's some like because in Europe you get 250 watts. It's not too hard to have a 250-watt solar panel like on the back of your bike. Like you could, I don't know. There's something there. We don't know what it is yet, but we're gonna keep an eye on that space.
Yeah, of the solar enabled bikes, I think this is one of the best attempts I've seen yet.
Okay.
Like it's getting closer to practicality.
Yeah. Well, we need the tries. We need the effort. All right. PNY, company that makes like SD cards and stuff. Electric cargo motorcycle is actually hitting the road.
So yeah, this is a different PNY. This one's actually
Okay.
pronounced pony, believe it or not. And
Okay.
so this is their this is actually the Pony P2, their electric cargo. They call it a scooter. I mean, it's basically like a motorcycle, just without like the aggressive look. And it has a positively gigantic cargo section. The entire body of it is basically cargo, and it's really designed for commercial use. They're going to be doing pilots soon with DHL and the local post office, and it's just like probably the largest storage electric scooter or motorcycle I've ever seen. I think it's 400 liters of storage between the like center section and that rear box, which is like two 55-gallon oil drums, if you can picture that worth of storage on this thing. They've got a few different styles. Here you can see the style that's got a couple of these like Uber Eats or Deliveroo food delivery boxes in it. Of course, they've got the hard storage designed for like couriers, DHL, that sort of thing. But this is a fully capable electric motorcycle. It goes something like 62 miles an hour. So that's like minimum highway speeds, like urban highways, probably not hopping on the interstate. But the idea is that for a delivery company, they're not limited to bicycle lanes. They're not limited to, like a cargo bike for deliveries. And this could actually replace a van that would be used on, larger roads, but can still carry a significant amount more than an e-bike. And then if you're in an area that allows lane splitting, you get all of the advantages of being on a motorcycle, that you're not stuck in traffic, yet you're still carrying a crazy amount of mail or cargo or anything compared to electric bikes. This company is actually based in Israel, so I'm going to be hopefully trying one of these pretty soon. They're bringing 50 in their first production batch to do a trial with the post office and DHL, and then a few other like private companies that want to use them as their like service trucks, basically, to send out like service technicians. So they'll keep their tools in there, but hopefully I'll be trying them soon. I actually got a chance to sit on these at the Milan Motorcycle Show last week, and they feel quite nice. I mean, it feels like you're sitting on any scooter style motorcycle. It's not weird feeling,
Mhm.
especially because electric motorcycles generally are so fat from that big battery pack anyway. Which actually reminds me, this one, the other really nice thing about this design is that the battery is actually down below your feet. It's the very, very bottom of the frame below that cargo section. It's a cattle battery. And so,
Okay.
you've basically got the absolute lowest center of gravity you could possibly have. It's kind of like the skateboard chassis of the motorcycle world in that way.
Mm.
Um, and so it's a really cool design here. And I think that if we can replace more of these, like sprinter vans in cities with these types of things, then that's the way to go. To still have the, higher speeds that motorcycles can reach, to be able to get you out of just like inner city roads, to be able to go on like urban highways, but to take a lot of the bulk of what a sprinter van or a panel van would normally carry and put it into a lighter, more nimble, more energy efficient vehicle. To me, this seems to be the way to go. I don't know if I'd want to ride one as my daily rider. It's not the coolest looking electric motorcycle out there, but it has a job to do, and I think it will perform that job pretty well. What do you think, Seth? Could we replace vans with these?
Oh, absolutely. I think that would be fantastic, especially this open one seems like the perfect way to do that. I have to ask though, are you using, like, you look the same on both of these pictures? Like it feels like you're pasting yourself.
It does look like a Photoshop.
Like even the fingers, I'm trying to find a difference. It does seem
Yeah,
like a different angle.
yeah, the hair's a little bit different if I ran
Okay.
my fingers through it. But yeah, I
Okay.
mean, the two bikes are in the booth, one in front of the other, so it
Right.
does look a little copy paste.
No, it seems like a great bike and great idea. I, I just kind of wish there were more being built or thought about in the U.S. I know Cattle's going to come out with the best batteries, and obviously the prices are going to be better than something assembled in the U.S. or Germany or something. So that's how it goes.
Yeah, well, I'm sure eventually it'll expand around. They're already looking at European importers, so hopefully the US will be next.
Cool. All right. Speaking of US, LiveWire unveils powerful electric maxi scooter built on its motorcycle platform.
Yeah, this one kind of came out of left field. We've known that LiveWire's newer platform, what's called the Aero S2, that they built their Del Mar and their Mulholland motorcycles on. We knew that it was destined to sort of be this platform that they could develop a lot of different vehicles on top of it. I'm not sure that I saw a maxi scooter coming, but here we are. LiveWire has unveiled their concept for what they're saying will become a production electric maxi scooter. For those that don't know, a maxi scooter is basically just an electric scooter, talking like Vespa style scooter, but much bigger, usually a lot more comfortable, higher power, highway capable. The Aero S2 platform that's used on the Del Mar, it goes, I believe, it's at 105 miles an hour, something like that. So, this is very much a highway capable machine. It's got I think 10.5 kilowatt hour battery. So very high performance, 0 to 60 in something like 3.1 seconds. So, this is LiveWire is obviously, high performance electric motorcycle brand. And so to bring in this electric maxi scooter is an interesting application of that same platform. Now, we all know, LiveWire, they spun out of Harley Davidson, and we know that that comes with sort of, pros and cons. One of the ways that LiveWire has tried to differentiate itself from its parent company, Harley Davidson, is by targeting a younger, more urban rider. And I think this definitely goes along with that target market. You're not going to see probably a lot of like, big gray bearded guys riding around on electric maxi scooters anytime soon. But we've seen a lot of success of other companies like BMW CE04, their electric maxi scooter. We've seen the success of that in urban markets. And so I think that's what LiveWire is chasing after here. That same sort of young urban customer, but maybe someone that doesn't necessarily want like the lifestyle of a motorcycle ownership, but they do want the power, they want the performance, and they want something that they can comfortably ride around the city, that they can put their partner on the back, and that they can justify for more utility type riding. This is obviously going to have more storage than a motorcycle. Generally these things have decent underseat storage. Now, there is a battery in the front section of that under that saddle, so I'm not sure how deep it's going to go, but probably also under the rear There's a little more storage under the pillion seat. So these are very much designed for utility. They're designed for transportation, not as much for fun. No one buys a maxi-scooter because they want to go canyon carving. But if you've got LiveWire's high performance platform underneath it, then it's probably going to be one of the most fun maxi scooters that's ever been produced with that kind of performance, that kind of acceleration underneath it. So I'm super excited about this. I own a Delmar S2, and so I know the platform works well. And I'm also a scooter guy. Like I have a GoGo scooter. That's me and my wife's daily driver. Like, the Delmar is fun, but the thing that we take to get around every day is the scooter. So to combine those two things into one vehicle is, I think, going to be a really interesting approach for LiveWire. Now, we're probably not going to see this very soon. They're talking about, I think, 2026 as the rollout. And then the other interesting thing is that they've actually partnered with KYMCO, which is a very large Taiwanese scooter company. They've been working together for a couple of years now. KYMCO is a minority owner of LiveWire, and so they bought a piece of it when the company went public, I believe. And there's been some interesting partnerships. The same platform is going to go into KYMCO's Revonex electric motorcycle, so there's a lot of back and forth there. I was talking to actually the CEOs of both companies, LiveWire and KYMCO, last week at the Milan Motorcycle Show. So it was great to get a chance, like the three of us, to sit down and all talk together. And you could see just how closely they're working together. They're already like doing sort of an exchange program where some of the KYMCO employees are sitting with the LiveWire team. Then LiveWire is sending some of their employees to Taiwan, so that they're basically sort of all working around the clock and they're collaborating much more closely. So it's really cool to see that integration. And this first sort of evidence of that is going to be this really interesting maxi scooter. Do you think you would ever ride something like this, Seth, or you're not really a scooter kind of guy?
No. I mean, these scooters look way cooler than the typical Vespa type scooter that you see around, and obviously these are highway capable, so not really, a little bit different animal, I would say. I'm curious, like, KYMCO's obviously doing a lot of work behind the scenes here. Like, is this something that, like, I don't know, what is the end game here? Like, is KYMCO just gonna sell through LiveWire, or because KYMCO makes their own bikes?
Yeah, I don't think that they'll sell, each other's products, or like even in the same market that they'll, market each other's products. I think it's really sort of a technology exchange. KYMCO gets out of it an existing electric vehicle platform, which they unveiled the Revonex back in 2019, 2020, something like that. And so it's been around for a while, and they've sort of played with different ways of bringing it to production, and they haven't yet. And so for them, I think they found a shortcut to production by using LiveWire's existing platform. On the other hand, LiveWire, obviously, a much smaller company than Harley-Davidson. They don't have the same engineering resources. They don't have the same scooter experience. And so they benefit from KYMCO's team that has been building scooters for, decades. And so I think really it's the technology exchange that is going to benefit both of them, even if they're not, doing a finished product exchange in each other's markets.
Yeah, that seems like a good outcome. Are LiveWires distributed at Harley Davidson showrooms still? I mean, I know you can buy them at Best Buy and maybe not LiveWire. I'm thinking of Serial, but the LiveWires
Yeah.
are still.
Yeah, they're in the Harley Davidson dealerships. In fact, almost exclusively. I think the plan was to have more LiveWire specific stores, kind of like fancy Apple stores in a sense. They
Mhm.
do have a few. I know there's the one in Malibu at least, but for the most part, they're using Harley Davidson's sprawling dealership network as like LiveWire stores, and so there's usually a section in the Harley dealerships, often sort of in the back or a corner, where they've got the LiveWire bikes.
Got it. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense on a few levels. So, and we like both of those companies. They do great work. So hopefully it pans out. Did we talk about the BMW maxi scooter competition? I know when I look at these, I kind of think about that thing. What is that thing called?
Yeah, that's the CEO4, and it's
Okay.
been pretty well received. It seems like it's been a commercial success as well, and I think that was really like Harley's wake up call that like that's a really interesting direction to use this platform we've already created. Why not do a little bit of modification and turn this thing into a maxi scooter.
Yeah. No, I love it. I love the idea. I love the look. Go on the highway. Great all around. All right, let's move on. Last story. I see some people in the comment section. If you have any questions or comments, throw them in there now. We'll answer in a few minutes. But this is Royal Enfield unveiling new electric motorcycle, and it's the perfect type.
Yeah, so this is, in my opinion, the perfect type of electric motorcycle right now are these smaller, sort of gap filler motorcycles, something between like a Suron, which is a smaller, like not street legal bike, and these larger Zeros and Energicas, that style of motorcycle, which we've seen over the past year or two has been very hard to sell, with Energica actually going bankrupt recently. And so Royal Enfield, the first electric motorcycle they've rolled out here for commercialization, is very much in sort of a what appears to be 125cc, maybe up to 250, but probably closer to 125cc equivalent electric motorcycle. So, it's a small format. We don't know too much about the technical specs yet. In fact, we know almost nothing, because they really rolled out the design here to show people what they're working on, but they're talking about not commercializing it until the first quarter of 2026. So we've got about a year and a bit until we see this actually roll out, and sometime between now and then, hopefully they're going to drip the technical specs out. But what we can see from this is that the battery is fairly small. This is obviously meant to be an urban bike. It's not going to have a huge range. It's unclear even if it's going to be highway capable. I'm guessing it's probably going to get up into the like 65, maybe 70 mile per hour range, with the goal being, yes, you can take it on the highway, but like a lot of these smaller bikes, that's going to just deplete the battery very quickly. So a lot of these sort of urban commuter motorcycles, they're fast enough that you could do, an exit or two. If you're in LA, you could hop on the highway for a couple exits, that sort of thing. But that it's really meant to be an urban bike. We also have no idea what the price.
I don't want to interrupt, but in LA, you're pretty much, it's stop and go. Like you might as well be on city streets.
There you go. I guess you don't need to go very fast.
Right.
All right, so that's fair. So I guess you can just take an electric bicycle on the highway here. So
pretty much.
But the Flying Flea here, we also don't even know what it's going to be priced at yet. Now, Royal Enfield has always been quite reasonable. This is an Indian company that has sort of set their legacy on building retro style, dependable, accessible motorcycles. And so this is not going to be something that probably comes in with a crazy price tag. If I had to guess, I would think that they're going to come in somewhere between like $6,000 to $8,000, which in today's market is fairly reasonable for a bike of the specs that this appears to have. And so if they can do that, I have high hopes for this machine. And again, it's going to depend on those specs. If this turns out to be like a 45 or 50 mile an hour motorcycle, or it's, sort of like Kawasaki's motorcycles that they brought out, the Electric Ninja, that has pretty poor specs, close to like 55 miles an hour or something, then it might be dead on arrival, at least outside of India. But from what it appears, just by looking at this thing, we got to see it at the Milan Motorcycle Show, it looks like it's going to be that sort of what the Metacycle was meant to be in terms of a pretty capable commuter electric motorcycle. And then the last thing to note here is that the branding Royal Enfield is using for this, they're calling this the Flying Flea, which is in fact the whole new brand that's going to encompass their lightweight electric motorcycles. For those that know their World War II history, the Flying Flea was Royal Enfield's military motorcycle that they airdropped with paratroopers during World War II. So the British soldiers would have like a very lightweight, easy to use motorcycle on the battlefield. It's got, like the storied legacy from the Flying Flea. And so they've sort of reincarnated that name to bring it back for their electric line here. It doesn't mean that all of Royal Enfield's electric motorcycles going forward are going to be within the Flying Flea family. If they do like their adventure bikes and that sort of thing electric, they said that will probably be under Royal Enfield. But at least for this commuter style, urban, lightweight electric motorcycle family, it's likely all going to be under this new brand. So it's not really considered a Royal Enfield anymore. These will all be what are known as Flying Fleas from now on. And in this case, the two models that we see here are the C6 and the S6 for the classic and the scrambler versions, where the classic is this sort of like naked bike, which is, in my opinion, really cool looking. They both have these girder forks, this old style saddle, just very interesting looking motorcycles. The motor's designed to look kind of like the crankcase on an old engine. And so very much keeping with that, Royal Enfield retro aesthetic in a, entirely modern electrical package. So I'm pretty gung-ho about this, but I have to reserve final judgment until we get the specs, because we really don't know the tech specs here. And until then, it's hard to make that final judgment.
Gabriel Prop from the comments says that the German rep from Royal Enfield said 7,000 euros.
Interesting. Yeah, they were super cagey at the launch. So if that's true, then that's great. But it seems like they're not ready to release numbers. I mean, that's sort of what I was guessing. I was saying $6,000 to $8,000, so that would be right in the middle there.
All right, let's move to comments. Well, before we get to comments, my take on that is it's a great looking bike. Like it really seems like something that could take off, especially at the $7 whatever price point. But obviously it has to get made, it has to get tried, but coming out of India, that makes a lot of sense. All right. Random dude said we want a podcast. They got a podcast. Nathan Bhutan tipped us. We're going to have some coffee. Thank you, Nathan.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Choosy Heretics choose. All right. I'm the owner of a handful of electric bicycles, and I'm feeling abandoned by the broken promises of the delivery of solid state rechargeables. Feels like the Jesuits bait and switch. All right. I think we're going kind of deep here. What do we do about deep here? All right. I've got a Bosch battery, which is supposed to be a reputable brand battery that gave up the ghost with 1,200 miles on it, apparently. I'm not a happy camper. 1,200 miles is not nothing. But yeah, I guess a Bosch battery you'd want to last a little bit longer.
Also kind of depends on the years too. Is that 1,200 miles over 5 years, or is that,
right,
batteries do age, right?
In the winter, the usage. Kimco makes great products. They build Kawasaki's youth four-wheelers. Yeah, I think they're behind a lot of stuff that we're not aware of. Choosy says, I wouldn't buy another rechargeable vehicle, not even another electric bike. I'm holding out until we get solid state rechargeable. All right, so he's got maybe 6 or 7 more comments about that. Wow, he keeps going. All right, let's move on. We talked about the German price is 7,000 according to Gabriel. And no type 2 charger. I wonder if he means level 2 charger?
Yeah, so it seems like that it probably won't have a level 2 charger. I didn't see any inverter on it, and I was pretty shrouded, but there's just not a lot of room on it. Even the battery section is pretty small. And it sounded like they were sort of playing up the idea of, every plug is a charging station. So it seems like they're leaning into this level 1, or at least, preparing us for when they announce that it's only got level 1 charging. But it's not confirmed yet, I don't think.
Yeah, maybe that'll be an option at some point in the future. All right. Arpit Bohr says, what will be the next revolution in BEV in the coming years? Battery electric vehicles, I guess, might be for cars, the question, but this is bikes and small micromobility. But we can kind of adapt that question. What do you see as the next revolutionary movement?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, I consider these still battery electric vehicles, right? They're just smaller ones. But I still think it's battery technology that's holding us back, right? Like, especially in the world of motorcycles, because in e-bikes, like, it just doesn't take that big of a battery to go that far. But once you get into these more powerful machines, there's nowhere to hide batteries in a motorcycle the way there is in a car, And so once we can increase the energy density, whether that's through new chemistry, whether that's through solid state batteries, or something that we don't even know about right now, but is being developed in a lab somewhere and will be debuted next year. I think that's what's really holding us back, is this, the next level of energy density, so that we can have finally long-range motorcycles, or so that we can have all sorts of smaller vehicles, scooters and bikes that just have tiny batteries, and it's no longer a big design consideration, that you're no longer building fat bike tubes around a battery. It's suddenly like something the size of a baseball that you can stick anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I would add that maybe more interchangeable parts would be nice. Maybe that would bring prices down. Um, you know, companies could kind of differentiate outside of the drivetrain. I guess Bosch has been doing that forever, so maybe I'm not really talking the right way, but it just seems like, if you could have a very low cost battery, like something what Gogoro does, and the companies wouldn't have to think about like battery technology. They could just say, all right, we're getting 48 volts, 15 amps out of this thing, and we're going to build around that. I kind of wish that there would be
And
some
that's like the
movement.
standard.
Yeah, it just feels like we're
Yeah.
due. But that's not exciting, obviously.
I mean, if it worked, it would be exciting. If there was like that one standard that we could all rely on.
Right. Yeah.
But we can dream.
Right. All right. So I guess maybe we'll close out with some of the choosy heretics guy. He built a 4-wheel farm wagon framed electric bicycle camper. So put that in your brain. And put a class 1 hitch on my cargo bicycle to go around town. It's a picture, but it's a clown machine now. I do think so. So he's definitely behind the solid state battery dream, which I think is actually going to happen. What's the company? I don't know. The couple companies that are.
Yeah, they're getting close.
Yeah, I mean, they build the batteries. They just can't build them at scale. So
Yeah, it's the commercialization that's the tricky part. We have the technology at this point.
Russell Hogan says, I would think a maxi scooter would provide a good battery space. Seems the American market is hesitant to go that way, but here, Hawaii scooters are everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, so the downside to maxi scooters, and to me one of like the few downsides, is that they have less foot space. Like it's usually not a step through design, and as you can see in that LiveWire, the battery is between your legs, so it's where your calves are, and so you do have a good chunky battery there. But I imagine there's still going to be good storage space on that scooter, despite you having a big 10.5 kilowatt-hour battery between your legs.
So one last question from our Pete. What is the desirable e-bike range from a consumer perspective?
I
So
mean,
we're
it
talking
seems like
about pedal
anything.
bikes, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think when you hear companies talk about less than 20 or 25 miles, people start to say like, no, thank you. And above 30 is where it's like everyone's like, all right, that seems like, something I could live with. Now you get a lot of these, 60, 70, 80-mile claims, which I usually have those for real world. But yeah, it seems like under 25. I mean, honestly, I think 25 is plenty for most people, but it seems like if a company only has 25, people think that's not enough for me. That's
Yeah,
where I see it.
and often there's embellishment anyway, so we're kind of figuring that into our calculations. So like, oh, 25, that's optimum, everything. So maybe we're actually talking about 10 miles, and maybe that's not good for me. And
Yeah.
then there's some battery degradation as you own the bike for a couple of years. Then all of a sudden 25 is 16, and that's not great either. So,
Yeah, fair enough.
all right, that's probably a good place to end it.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in. We'll see you guys back here in another 2 weeks for another episode of the Wheelie Podcast. See you next time, everyone.